This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
One of the Browns' biggest points of emphasis this offseason is about the run game. And the Browns have done a lot to beef up this run game from last year. There's a lot of personnel switches. You got 2 new running backs that you got in the draft. You have new offensive linemen, guys switching positions, guys, a change of offensive line coach, a change of offensive philosophy, a change of offensive coordinator. The Browns have done a lot to signal to us the plan is to run the football. There's no doubt about that. You go on any Browns channel that's paying attention, and I don't know what's out there, so, but most people are saying the Browns are trying to run the ball. That's the consensus. We're all in agreement here, right? The Browns are trying to run the ball. They're going to use some wide zone. They're going to use some inside zone, maybe a little bit more power, but they're going to go back to a run the ball focused offense where they're splitting about 500 on each on pass and run, right? Like they have. I think the last couple of years with Deshaun Watson have been the only years where they've been like 600, 400. I'll double check that. 2020, the Browns were 501 pass attempts, 495 rush attempts. So really balanced in 2020. 2021, the Browns were 520 pass attempts, 485. So still pretty close to a 50-50 balance here. 2022, which I believe is the first Watson year, 540 to 532. So super balanced in 2022, run pass. 2023, 624 pass attempts to 518. You start to see more of a 60-40 split there. Last year, for a lot of reasons, 661 pass attempts to 391 rushing attempts, which is all out of whack here, right? When Kevin has the offense that he wants to have, it's obvious that he wants to be balanced run pass because more often than not, he is about 50-50 in run and pass attempts. The last 2 seasons, it's gotten higher and higher, especially with Deshaun Watson and then Ken Dorsey, who's never been known for running the football, but they usually like to stay at a 50-50 balance. They're going to want to bring this back to a 50-50 balance, which means there's going to be about 500 rushing attempts to be given out. Now, there is a big question I have to ask about those 500 rushing attempts, which is like, who's going to be splitting those 500 rushing attempts? I think it's pretty safe to assume Quincy Jenkins, 200 rushing attempts, signed, sealed, delivered. He's going to get 200. No doubt about it in my mind. They're already having him play with the ones. It is clear to me that that is the one pick that they expect to play week 1, no doubt, and be a huge part of their game plan week 1. Quincy Jenkins. There's no developmental period with him. They drafted him because he's plug and play. So already off the bat, 200 rushing attempts, Quincy Jenkins. Well, there's 300 more rushing attempts to go. Now, when you don't have a quarterback who's going to run the ball like 50, 60 times like a Deshaun Watson would, right? On the higher end, let's see how many times Kyler Murray runs the ball out there in Arizona a year. Kyler Murray rush attempts, he is sitting at about 80. Yeah, he averages about 104, 104 a season, right? Like if you have a quarterback who runs, my main point here is that's a big chunk out your rush attack. Usually you see those chunks come out the pass game, which is if you look at the teams that are the lowest in pass attempts that are like 440, 480 in pass attempts, under 500. Those are usually teams with a quarterback who runs a lot. Lamar Jackson, not Justin Fields, but Justin Fields does apply. He is a running quarterback. But Lamar Jackson, who runs a lot, I think he takes like the second most carries in Baltimore. a game. I remember he led the team in carries multiple times. So Lamar Jackson takes a ton of carries throughout the season. Let me see what his average is in his career. Yeah, Lamar takes like 164 carries, 167. That's why the pass attempts are usually pretty low coming out of Baltimore. Same thing with Jalen Hurts out of Philadelphia, who Jalen Hurts takes a lot of rushing attempts as well. So the whole point of that is the Browns don't have a rushing quarterback. None of these quarterbacks are going to run the ball that much. Shedeur Sanders, not going to run the ball that much. Dylan Gabriel, not going to run the ball that much. You're not going to do design runs for either of those two guys. You damn sure aren't going to do it with Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett is legit the most mobile quarterback you have. And not to say that Kenny Pickett is a immobile quarterback, but Kenny Pickett is not read option, let's run with him quarterback, right? He's like kind of thrifty at times. Not going to be a lot of rushing attempts that come out that quarterback room is my point. So when we're allocating these 500 rushing attempts, right, we can't just say, hey, 50, 80, 130, 150 of these carries are going to go to the quarterback, right? We have to account for those carries because maybe 20 of those rushing attempts are going to come from quarterbacks all season. So where do the other attempts go, right? So we got 200 for Quincy. We'll put a budget of about 20 rushing attempts here for the other quarterbacks. And now we're sitting at 280 rushing attempts between Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford, the last couple of years, he has run the ball quite a bit. And I would argue however many times he's run the ball over the last 2 years is too many. Jerome Ford is a small doses running back, in my opinion. He's a running back that you do not mind in small doses. He's a running back that is fine when you just aren't giving him 200 carries, right? If you're giving him 70 to 80 carries, it makes a lot more sense. When you give him 204 carries like we did in 2023, you start questioning whether he should be on the field, right? I think this phenomenon was at play if you compare his 2022 to 2024, and I think the Browns figured this out. You look on paper, Jerome Ford had 813 yards, over 1,000 total yards, 4 touchdowns. But if you look at the efficiency, it was atrocious. He averaged 4 yards a carry, which is below the 4.5, minimum to be an efficient running back. His success rate was abysmal, it was 39%. Last year, he was a lot better. But the reason I think he was a lot better is because he only took 104 carries. He averaged 5.4 yards a carry, 565 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a success rate of 47.1. Jerome Ford is not an every down back. He's not your main third down back. Jerome Ford is a third running back. 100 carries at most. Anything over 100 and you risk overexposing him. And look, even though Jerome Ford's efficiency was good last year, even though Jerome Ford's running numbers were pretty good last year, the truth is with Jerome Ford, probably would have been much better if you just gave him 90 carries, right? I think 17 too many carries for him. So you want to keep Jerome Ford under 100 carries. So we got 280 carries left. We're going to subtract 100 from Jerome Ford, and now we have 180 carries left. Are we really trying to give Dylan Sampson 180 carries in his rookie year? There's one reason. There's a difference between Quincy Junkins being your top 40 pick, one of the most pro-ready running backs in the NFL, and immediately giving that guy 200 carries versus Dylan Sampson, who is a bit more of a developmental pick, right? Now, Dylan, to his credit, has run over 200 times in the SEC at Tennessee. But Dylan Sampson is also not the biggest guy in the world. He's about 5'8". How tall? How big is Dylan Sampson? How much does he weigh? Right? Because I think that's a big thing too. Because Jerome Ford at 210 pounds really struggled to play 200 snaps in the NFL. Right? Like he's a 100 snap guy, and a good reason for Jerome Ford being an 100 snap guy is because he's about 210 pounds. Dylan Sampson, it's listed at 5'8", 200. Let me see what his combine measurements were, just to be 100% sure here. We're getting some live fact checking on this video. Yeah, he weighed 200 pounds at the combine. So I hate to break it to folks, but 5'8", 200 pounds, even if you account for the lesser body mass, because 210, 5'10" that Jerome Ford is a little bit different than 5'8", 200. But I think if somebody do the body mass calculations in the chat, I'm pretty sure it's a similar BMI. At the end of the day, that's just too small to get 200 carries in the NFL, right? And we're talking about having 180 carries left to get to 500. Like, the Browns are not trying to run the ball 400 times like last year. They're trying to get that 100 extra carries. Where is that going to come from? This is why I think Nick Chubb coming back makes more sense than the Browns are giving it credit. The Browns don't want to do it. I don't think they're going to do it. But, to the people who are like, hey, we're going to have 3 running backs. We're going to run the ball more. I'm like, there's some cognitive dissonance there because you might need 4 to get the job done. Because Jerome Ford's a 100-carry guy. I would say Dylan Sampson, you would want to give him about 100 carries. So that's 200 right there. And then you have Quincy Junkins getting about 200 carries. So we're at 400. And then 20 carries for the running backs. Where are those other 80 carries going to go? That's a significant amount of use. Where are those other carries? You're going to give them to Pierre Strong? I'd rather give it to Cook Nick Chubb than Pierre Strong on his best day. Who's going to get those other 80 carries? Because we're not going to get we're going to give Quinshawn 250 carries? 300 carries? That seems a little crazy. First year in the NFL, giving you 300 carries. That seems a bit unsound of a strategy. I wouldn't be really confident in Kevin if he thought that you could just give that dude 300 carries off the bat. I think you give him about 200. Dylan Sampson feels like about 100. He's a 200-pound back. You can't really give him a ton of snaps, right? You got to let his body catch up to the league. Jerome Ford has proven he's a 100-snap guy. I wouldn't love it if the idea was we're going to give Jerome Ford 200 carries. We've seen Jerome Ford with 200 carries. He's garbage. Really useful at 100 carries, not very useful at 200 carries. He is the Tobias Harris of running backs. For those of you who don't know, Tobias Harris, the meme about him in basketball is that Tobias Harris will always give you 15 points. You could play him 60 minutes, 40 minutes. You can play him 20 minutes. He'll give you 16, right? He's never going to give you more than that. Jerome Ford is a similar thing. Jerome Ford, his efficiency, his production does not scale, right? He needs to be used less to be used more effectively. So 100 carries for Jerome. They know this too, because despite all the run game problems the Cleveland Browns had, they never once were like, hey, man, let's give Jerome Ford more carries. They kept him at 100 carries for a reason. So this is not they just really believe in Jerome Ford. They just reduced his contract and made him take a pay cut. There's no way you're getting 200 carries after that. So Jerome Ford, 100 carries. Quincy Junkins, 200. That's what he ran at Ohio State, splitting carries. That's what you would expect a rookie to get, 200, even if they really believe in you, 200. And then quarterbacks, about 20 carries. Dylan Sampson, maybe 100. I think 100's on the higher side, maybe 100. He's going to probably be, I'd imagine, third in that rotation. So are we just going to run the ball 400 times again? Or is there another running back that's coming in here? Or is Dylan Sampson more ready than it appears? Because body-wise, I don't think he is. You can have your belief in him as a player and that eventually he will be that good. But, maybe he gets to 150 carries. We're still talking about being under 500 with the carries. And I think that's the goal. You want to get close to 500 carries. Have a really balanced offense. And to have a balanced offense, you got to get about 500 carries. How are the Browns going to get there? There are a number of ways they can. I think that keeping 4 running backs is 1,000% on the table. I talked about it in my video before. If Nick Chubb's just sitting there in August, it would be irresponsible for the Browns not to just take him at that point, because you're going to need 4 running backs anyway. Like, do you think you're going to get to 500 carries without a bona fide All-Pro that's a bell cow on this team? You're insane, right? Like, that's not going to happen with 3 running backs. It has to happen with 4. So the Browns need 4 to get to that 500 number. Remember, when they got the 500 carries back in the day, it was with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, 2 guys who were bell cows in the NFL. Right now, we're talking about 2 guys who were bell cows in the SEC in the Big Ten one year. But even Quincy wasn't really a bell cow in the Big Ten. He was a split carry guy, and he prefers to split carries. He's mentioned this before, so I think he's expecting that he splits carries. But Dylan Sampson, I don't think he's going to be at the point by the start of camp where he's going to take 200 carries. Even if he looks really good, probably about 100 carries. So where are the rest of them carries going to go from? I mean, that's ignoring the fact that we're relying on 300 carries from rookies, which is not usual. Right? The only vet we have in this room is Jerome Ford. Do the Browns have the personnel in the running back room to actually run the ball 500 times? I'm not entirely confident about that yet. If they brought back Nick Chubb, I'd be a lot more confident. But right now, as I look at the depth chart, I see a massive hole of carries that they have no real plan to fill. Unless the plan is to give to let these rookies be way more proportionate of the run total than expected, which I think is dangerous.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
That's really the only way I could see them getting to that 500 number as the roster is currently constructed. Maybe there's a running back I'm forgetting about. I don't really think that there is. I mean, if you want to yell at me that Pierre Strong should get 100 carries, okay. I don't agree with you. I don't think Pierre Strong should get 100 carries. I'd rather see Nick Chubb get 80, okay? Or I'd rather see Nick Chubb get 250 carries again than watch Pierre Strong get 80 carries. So not really a big fan of that idea. Who else is on there? Like, let me make sure I'm not missing anybody. Let me look at the Browns running back depth chart. Because I think we have paid attention to the emphasis being on the run game, but we've really ignored the actual room itself. Yeah, right now it's Pierre Strong, Dylan Sampson, Quincy Junkins, Jerome Ford on the depth chart. If we look at Browns.com and the roster, let me see everybody who's listed as running back right now. And you tell me where you see 80 carries from. We can do this. Right, let's be super thorough about this conversation. Jerome Ford, Amani Marshall from Appalachian State, he's a rookie. Dylan Sampson, we talked about him, probably 100 carries there. And Pierre Strong. We only got 4 on the training camp roster right now. Like, there's a gap there that I think they need to address, man. Because I really hope the plan isn't let's give Jerome Ford 200 carries. I think that's a bad idea. If the Browns go into the season and that's their plan, that plan stinks. That plan sucks. Like, bad plan, Kevin. I don't love leaning on the rookies more than you're already leaning on the rookies. You're already expecting about 300 carries from your rookie running backs. That's a lot. That's a ton. That's probably more than anybody in the NFL, including the team that took Ashton Jeanty in the first round, right? Because Ashton Jeanty's probably not going to get to 300 carries. And that's the only rookie running back that they're playing. So, like, it's going to be a very high level. And I get that this rookie class was really good, and Dylan Sampson, you like him a lot, but not every rookie running back is going to be ready to go year one. Dylan Sampson's not one of those guys I'm looking at and go, oh, yeah, he's built to go already. Quincy Junkins is a different story because he is what, 5'11", 220 pounds. He's jacked. He looks like an NFL guy already. Like, okay, I can believe him getting 200 carries off the bat. That's not a problem. But Dylan, it's like 100, I feel like it's a bit of a stretch. I wonder where those carries going to come from. You know, I think it could come from Nick Chubb. I'm hoping that it comes from Nick Chubb. I understand it. It's probably not. I don't think the Browns want to bring him back. And I do not love that decision. I've talked about that so much this summer. But there's a hole here for carries, and I really hope the plan isn't let's get Pierre Strong or Jerome Ford that gap of carries, because we've seen what that looks like. And that's not going to be successful. You're trying to get away from that, from all I can tell. And leaning on Pierre Strong more, leaning on Jerome Ford more, I don't think it's the way to go. Y'all let me know what you think in the comment section below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.